Very privileged to be joined now for his perspective on this unfolding story. 2 weeks after the Canadian Prime Minister triggered a huge diplomatic row between the two countries, a large number of Canadian diplomats have been flown out from India at India's orders. Joining me live now is Ambassador Kanwal Sibal. He's former Foreign Secretary of India. He's been ambassador to several different countries, including Russia, Turkey and Egypt. Ambassador Sibal, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate you joining me here on India Today. My first question to you is on this immediate development, sir, on Canada flying out reportedly an unspecified number of its diplomats. This comes a day after, as you know, sir, the External Affairs Ministry said that there was a continuing interference in internal affairs and that India sought parity. Your assessment of today's development, sir?
Well, a couple of things. One is that if you remember, our first reaction after Trudeau said what he said in the Canadian Parliament was to demand that Canada brings down the number of its diplomats and that there should be parity in the number of diplomats between the two countries and that there was interference in our internal affairs by the Canadian mission in New Delhi. So it's not as if we have escalated in any way. We didn't give a time frame, nor have we given officially any time frame, but we have made it clear that we expect them to act on our request to pare down the number of diplomats in their country. Now, they have done that. The numbers are not very good. So I would say that under any normal diplomatic rules, if a host country asks a foreign embassy to reduce its personnel and gives the ground why it wants it to be done, then the other country has no choice. Therefore, it's not a question of they bowing down to an order. I mean, it's not an order in that sense. It is diplomatic practice, accepted, recognized diplomatic practice. The second thing, of course, is that in terms of parity in numbers, frankly, most of the big missions here or major countries have a huge number of diplomats, whereas we have a much smaller number of diplomats in those countries, which is a function, of the way our embassies are structured. We have much smaller embassies. We have much smaller number of diplomatic personnel. And then our interest in countries is not always commensurate with the interests other countries have in us. So there is no absolute rule about parity. But in this case, there was very good reason to ask for parity because number of their diplomats far exceeds the number of our diplomats, and importantly, there is not much else in the relationship. No, if there was a very wide-ranging relationship as we have with the United States, you could make out a case that there's a big disproportion in the number of U.S. diplomats here and our diplomats in the United States. But then the level of engagement and the breadth of engagement is huge. But in the case of Canada, our trade is very little. Yes, there is investment by Canadian pension funds and this and that, but otherwise in terms of trade figures, they are very low. Other than our students going there and a lot of people from Punjab going to Canada, there's nothing much else in the relationship. So why should such a large number of diplomats in a country? But the related point is very important. It is standard practice of all countries. And they put in intelligence operatives in their consular wings. Because that is where the missions have a public interface.